We are going to talk about the case study we picked, how do sport organizations use social media to build relationships, a content analysis of NBA clubs, Twitter use. There are 4 people in our group. They are Tasha, Jane, Kyle, and me, Nicole. The case study stated that social media has increasingly been effective to sport organizations, which includes help building professional social relationships with fans. And there are also relationships between relationship dimensions and the number of retweets and favorites from Twitter followers. I believe most people are fans of NBA and they have followed the official NBA account in social media. But have you ever paid attention to what would happen if social media not exist? You could no longer get the updated information or event notice at the first time, or you might lose chance to interact with the basketball stars. It is undeniable that social media play an important role in our sport industry. This case study helps us analyze how social media affect the sport industry and in what aspect. Moreover, it also analyzes how strong the relationships are by looking into the data of retweets and favorites. It's interesting for us to find out the number of the retweets and the number of favorites will have different impact on the relationship dimension. Maybe after watching this case study, you would change the frequency of retweeting or liking. Now I'm going to talk about the hypothesis explanations. The first hypothesis of the case study is the social media use of sport organizations in building relationships with their public. They concluded that professional and personal relationships influence public satisfaction with a religious banking institution instead of community relationship. Because a person who considers himself as being in relationship with a club tends to have belongingness, consciousness with the club rather than the competitors. The second hypothesis is sports organizations can establish relationships based on their interaction with their social media users. The researchers found that retweeting could be an effective tool to draw retweets and favorites from followers. Retweeting has been demonstrated as a reliable indicator of the popularity and influence of Twitter messages, which means organizations could use the retweeting tool to increase credibility and visibility.
Hi, I'm Tasha. I'm going to talk about our prediction. Our prediction is the official NBA club account, which have the high frequency, usually bring a big number of retweets. Clubs focus on the professional relationship, and only one club focus on the personal relationship, and no club focus on community relationship. So let's see the data. As we can see, the highest frequency is come from the professional relationship. There takes more than half percentage of the total number. However, there has a different number from the table 2. As we can see, the biggest retweets number come from the community relationship. This part is take the more than a half of the total number. So as you can see, according to these 2 tables, this is not a positive relationship between not a positive relationship. So it's disconfirmed for our prediction, also for the hypothesis. So we suggest that official NBA clubs accounts should increasing their community relationship, and because the Twitter follower had a higher level of entertainment needs, which could be satisfied through the retweeting and the favoriting of the Twitter.
Hi, I'm Kyle and I am going to talk about the data in this case. First is the sampling. Total of 13 clubs in NBA was selected. The research period was one constructive week during 2013 to 2014 NBA season. This period was chosen because as a large number of trades were hosted by clubs every day is the most efficient sampling. The measurements used to process in this case study were both quantitative and quantitative. The qualitative measurements in this case is the OPR, which is Organization Public Relationship. OPR was defined as the patterns of the interactions, transaction, exchange, and linkage between the organization and its public, which was used to examine how sport organizations use social media to build relationship in the case study, and it was helped to identify the organizational function of public relations. According to Browning and Landy-Mahan, the OPR can be categorized into 3 dimensions: professional, personal, and community relationship, which were considered the foundations to construct a multi-item and multi-dimensional scale. Then the quantitative measurement in this case is the data collected in the official traders accounts of NBA clubs. The data from traders include the numbers of retweets and favorites. It is an active measurement. In the study, the researchers examined how Twitter users interact with each relation dimension. The data from Twitter include the numbers of retweets and favorites. It's an activity measurement. As a result, they collect numbers of retweets and favorites generated by Twitter users under one constructed way. Combining both measurements, then they also use this data to calculate frequency distribution relationship category.
Hi, I'm Jane, and now I will talk about how Queenie-Doo hypothesis apply in our case studies. Our team chose tribunal experience and underdeterminations to disconfirm our hypothesis. First of all, I will talk about tribunal of beliefs. As you see, the structure of tribunal of beliefs is if theory and auxiliary hypothesis 1, and then 2, and then 3, and so on, and then we got observations, and second one if we don't have observations. And as conclude, there is no enough evidence to prove the theories or auxiliary hypothesis 1 or 2 or 3 and so on. Our team comes up 3 auxiliary hypotheses. So everyone have a Twitter account. People check their Twitter all the time. And third one is people retweet or favorite every tweet they receive from official account. However, our hypothesis from previous video, the first one is if people like a club, they were building a relationship with the club. In this case, follow the Twitter account. The second one is the numbers of retweet and favorite from followers indicates the popularity and influence of the club's official account. Auxiliary hypotheses make our hypothesis difficult to confirm. In order to make hypothesis 1 true, we need to assume that everyone has a Twitter account, so therefore our data will be more accurate. But it's not the case that everyone has a Twitter account. And also for the second hypothesis, in order to make this one come true, we need to make sure that people check the Twitter all the time and people retweet and favorite the tweet every time. And now I will talk about how underdetermination apply in our case studies. Recall the data from previous video. The data indicate the relationship between the frequencies of official account and the number of retweet and favorite from the followers. But our hypothesis only talk about number of the tweet and favorite will indicate the popularity and influence. In this case, our data is not determining our hypothesis. Since we don't have enough data to prove how The number of retweets and favorites indicate the popularity and influence of the official account. So that's the reason why our data underdetermined our hypothesis.